हाँ, एक सेकंड देख रहे हैं। अरे मैं एक मिनट देखना, मैं मैसेज पोस्ट कर रहा हूँ
हाँ देख रहा हूँ, देखो अभी आया नहीं इधर। हाँ
वेटिंग में है क्या?
लोडिंग।
आवाज एक
Okay.
राजेशन के बोल।
Hello, so good morning everyone. I'll be your host this morning. कैसी है?
मस्त।
एनर्जी नहीं है
हाँ
ना
आवाज
आपको?
मस्त आ रही है भाई, आवाज बढ़िया
मस्त
चल रही है। ठीक है
ठीक है भाई।
यशन, तेरी आवाज बढ़िया आ रही है।
हाँ, थोड़ा
चल
एनर्जी
एक
बढ़ा
काम करता हूँ, मैं अपने
बढ़ा दे।
इंट्रो पे चले जाता हूँ। एक बार गो थ्रू कर दूँ, 2 मिनट लगेंगे पूरे
हाँ
के।
कर लिया।
ठीक है, so good morning everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to Advaith 2021. We are excited to see you all participate in Techfest and learn and build something unique. So I'm Yashwant Singh, upcoming final year computer science undergraduate from the Anand College, and an upcoming intern at AMD, and I'll be taking voice through this session today. Okay, so we the students at Point Club are collaborating with DSC Women's chapter of our college and are organizing a week-long technical fest, which includes a week-long hackathon, coding marathon, capture the flag, design wars, and a lot of speaker sessions. So from January 2020 till today, it has been about 18 months since this pandemic has started, and same as everyone, it has disrupted the lives of students and software engineers completely. So these are difficult times, but as you might have witnessed this yourself, distance is the last thing that can slow down this industry. With work from home culture becoming a new norm in the industry, the new norm the industry has adapted itself to. Hence since we need to be industry level, industry ready, no matter what the circumstances are.
अरे हेलो चलो JavaBrains ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं अभी।
Okay.
हाँ मतलब ठीक है यशवंत।
ठीक है, ठीक।
स्लाइड कब चेंज करनी थी इसके बाद?
स्लाइड में जब एक बार अद्वैत के बारे में बता दूंगा, उसके बाद कर दूंगा।
भाई लोग आ रहे हैं, देख रहे हैं, कोई नहीं है तो चले जा रहे हैं. आगे जाओ ब्रेंच. Okay. All the best, Yashwant.
Okay. Hi Koushik, we'll start in 2 minutes. Hi everyone, we'll be starting in 2 minutes.
Yashwant, am I visible and audible? Okay.
Yeah, you are visible and audible. Right.
And you can see my
I'll stop sharing my screen once I go through the intro.
Sure.
Then
Sure.
it will be.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you can see my title screen here.
Yeah, it's visible.
Cool.
Good morning everyone, we're starting shortly in 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so let's start. So good morning everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Advaith 2021. We are excited to see you all participate in Techfest and to learn and build something unique. So I'm Yashwant Singh, final year since computer science undergraduate from the Anand College and an upcoming intern at AMD. And I'll be taking you guys through this session today. So we the students at Point Blank are collaborating with DSC student chapter of the college and organizing a week-long technical fest consisting of events such as a week-long hackathon, a coding marathon, capture the flag, a design works, UI UX based design event, and a lot of speaker sessions. So as we have noticed, like from January 2020, it has around 18 months have passed since this COVID pandemic has hit us. And same as everyone, it has disrupted the lives of students and software engineers completely. So these are difficult times, but as you might have witnessed this yourself, distance is the last thing that can slow down the software industry. So with the work from home culture becoming a new norm, the industry have adapted. Hence, we need to be industry ready, no matter what the circumstances are. So throwing some more light on this topic, we have a special speaker joining from San Francisco, Mr. Koushik Kothagal. So having Mr. Koushik, founder of JavaBrains as a speaker is a great honor to us, also known as JavaBrains, the go-to YouTube channel of Java. And I'm sure most of you will be familiar with his work. Mr. Koushik creates all things in Java. In addition to this, he is staff engineer at LinkedIn. In light of this pandemic, everything has been adapted from hiring practices to policies at the companies. So he will provide guidance about this software job readiness during this pandemic. So hi Koushik, I'll hand over the mic to you.
All right. Thank you, Yashwant. Just making sure that this thing is set up fine. All right. So you can see my screen as well as myself. So cool. Yeah. Let's get started. So hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And thanks to the team for giving me an opportunity to address you all. The title of the talk is getting job ready during the pandemic. Is a situation that's facing us all right now. Before we get started with the talk, we want to get a sense for where you all are in your career journey. I mean, in your education journey. Sorry. I don't know if there is a way, Yashwant, that people can interact. I'd love to see some messages on, like, you're just starting studies, or your graduation program, or you're almost finishing. I would love to get a feel for where you all are. If that's possible, great. Otherwise, yeah, sure. I'm gonna assume like a mix of all backgrounds, and we can go from there.
It's a mix of all backgrounds. We have second years, third years, and final years as well. So guys, I will urge you to keep posting your chat questions on this chat. And for the people watching us on YouTube, I'll be relaying your message to the Koushik sir. So don't be afraid to ask questions and introduce yourself.
Hey, Koushik, yeah. So I would love to answer questions. What the plan is, I'm going to just run through the topic, and then we'll leave the end for Q&A. I'd love to answer any questions or comments. Okay, so a little bit about me. As you know, my name is Koushik Kothagal. I have about 20 years in the industry. Long time ago, I took my first job. And the industry has evolved a lot in some ways, and in some ways it's kind of stayed the same. I am currently working in LinkedIn. I'm a staff engineer at LinkedIn. I also run a channel called JavaBrains. It's a channel on YouTube, and I make Java and JavaScript content. All right, so about this talk, getting job ready during a pandemic. If you were to think about what this entails, right? So if I were to tell you, okay, here are the things that you need to do to get job ready during a pandemic, what would you think would be different compared to just being job ready in general? Okay, there are things which you need to do so that you're more marketable when you're applying for jobs. How much of this will be very different from being marketable when you're applying for jobs during a pandemic? Not a lot is going to be different, I'd assume. So in this talk, mainly I'm going to be talking about getting job ready. And the fact that we are in a pandemic is kind of like an additional dimension to the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about certain aspects of all these things which are a little bit different. Sometimes a little harder, sometimes a little easier because of this unique situation that we have right now. Okay, so one thing that you know is it is harder to get a job right now than it was 3 years back, okay, before the pandemic. The market was pretty good back then. It's a little harder now, right? But the thing about these external situations is that it is recurrent, okay? So I'm going to tell you a story. This is going back to when I graduated from my bachelor's in computer science. I did BE in computer science. I'm also from Bangalore, and I did my BE in computer science from MSRIT. When close to the time of graduated, we had campus recruitments, and I got a job as a software engineer in one of those campus recruitment interviews. And then this happened to be the time when the whole 2001 .com bubble burst. There were a lot of other things that happened then, which led the job market to completely tank. Okay, there was all the job offers were being canceled. Everything was off the table. Okay, so what I ended up having to go through was basically waiting for people to start hiring again, and we applied resumes everywhere. And seeing like, does anybody want to hire me? It was a very rough situation, and I remember I had a job interview with TCS, which was like probably the first company on a little bit of a recovery who started hiring for people. And I had an interview. I was the last person in the interview round, and I was kind of close to late evening. And I was given a coding problem, and I couldn't tackle it. And it was like the interviewer was like, "Yeah, well, if you can't do it, you can't do it. Let's move on." But then it was like, "Yeah, I just need 10 more minutes. Just give me 10 more minutes, and I'll do it." It was a really tough coding problem, right? If I look back, I forget what the problem was. But I look back, I talked to the person who hired me, and he said, "You weren't expected to crack that." I didn't know. Okay, so I said, "Okay, give me 10 more minutes." He said, "Yeah, I have a meeting. I'm gonna go for an hour and come back. By the time if you've solved it, great." So he left me in the room. Since I was the last person, I was fine. So I sat at it for an hour, whiteboarded it. It wasn't like, we weren't typing the code, whiteboarded it, and then kind of came to a solution. I was like, yeah, this is it. There was so much desperation in my attempt there because the situation was so bad. And I just so happened to get that job, but it could very easily have been otherwise. So the reason why I bring this story up is that the job market goes through ups and downs. It has always happened. It happened when I graduated, and it has been happening since. There have been a couple of slowdowns. There have been problems in the domains, different domains which have caused recruitment to slow down and all that. So the pandemic, as dramatic and as serious as it is in a lot of other situations, right? There is a health issue, there is the other economic issues. So it is kind of an outlier. It's something we've never seen before. But as far as the scope of the pandemic affecting the job market and the ability to find a job is concerned, I don't think it's a lot new. There have been other issues in the past. All I can say is that this too will pass. Okay, in a year from now or a couple of years from now, people are going to go back to the way things were, and it's just going to be in the past. It's just that while you are in the situation, it's going to be very, very hard to think otherwise. We as human beings tend to add more importance to what's going on right now and less importance to things that happened in the past and in the future, perhaps. So it's just this exaggerated value that we place on the difficulties that we have right now, which can be intimidating. So the point of the story is to just hold on tight. And the pandemic is just one of the several challenges that you face, unfortunately, in terms of getting a job and staying at a job. It's just, it's both a bad thing and a good thing. It's reassuring in that it's not so much out of the ordinary. It's something that you have to take at your pace. All right. So with that said, considering that you have people in this call and watching this video from various different levels of your graduation journey, right? I'm going to ask you, getting job ready, what does it mean? And when is the right time to actually start working on getting job ready? Folks can post in the comments or in the chat. I'd love to hear what you think is a good time to be job ready. Is it during your final year, or is it maybe during the final semester, or a little bit sooner than that? What do you folks think? I'd love to see some participation if people are interested.
Yeah, guys, please answer the question in the chat, and for those watching on YouTube, I'll be relaying your message directly to Koushik sir. So yeah, go ahead.
So I see third year, sixth semester, seventh semester, third year again, third year. Yeah. So this is something that I kind of practiced as well. When I graduated, I was looking at it like, okay, in the last 2 semesters, those are the key, right? Because that's when you're gearing up. There's project work typically, and you don't really have a lot of theoretical studies to do. So it's more of practical and practicing your coding skills and all that stuff. But what if I told you that it doesn't have to be that way? You can actually start working on getting job ready right from your first semester. Okay, you might wonder, well, how is it possible, right? It's there are 2 concerns that come up. The first concern is, well, a lot of things that we study in a typical bachelor's, a BE program, or any similar program, a lot of things you study isn't even computer science in the first year or so, right? You study a lot of other stuff. You study electronics, you study
maths, chemistry, electronics, all the mix up all the countries. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, how can you even start thinking about it? Right, is the first concern. Second concern I hear is, well, the technology changes a lot. So what's the point of me getting job ready now when the thing that I'm getting ready for is going to change in 3 years, right? So let's say I want to learn Python, and I want to learn machine learning, or I want to learn, React. Well, 3 years, 4 years down the line, React might not be there. It might be something else, right? So what's the point? So what I would say as a response to both those things is getting job ready, and I'm going to cover this in this talk as well. Getting job ready is not so much learning the framework, not so much learning the technology. It is about learning to be a good software engineer, okay? Being a good software engineer is independent of whether you're doing front-end, back-end, machine learning, AI, blockchain, whatever else, right? You can be a good software engineer in any of those fields, and you can be a bad software engineer in any of those fields.
right, absolutely.
Secondly, when you know that this is a stream that you want to pursue, right? There are people who are in other areas of doing their graduation, but they're still interested in computer science. Why let the formal syllabus and the formal agenda guide your learning so much that you want to hold off on learning about this till the very end? A lot of what you do in computer science and as a software engineer comes down to your passion. It's like how interested, how passionate you are in doing this, right? If you want to be economical in your effort, the software industry field is not for you. Okay, it's like you take any of the work that, like, for example, I was doing some backyard work, right? So I was digging up dirt and then trying to plant some trees and all that stuff. What I did there was I was being very economical in my effort. I was like, what is the least amount I can dig to get that weed out? What is the least amount of work that I can do to get the job done? Okay. Physical labor, you have to be economical because you're not building a skill there. I wasn't building a skill there. I wasn't going to be a professional gardener. I just wanted that particular area fixed. Okay. So I was being economical in my work. However, when I'm learning a new technology, when I'm being a good software engineer, I'm being a good employee for my company, I am not going to be economical. What I do is I use it as an opportunity to improve myself. And being economical is the worst strategy for improving yourself. You actually have to do 10 things so they can probably be good in one thing. And this applies not just to software engineering, it applies to everything in anything that you want to learn in the world, right? So being economical is not the right strategy for being a software engineer, especially for being a software engineer. So why wait till the end? Why not put some extra effort to kind of get started on that journey? So with those two in mind, I would say the right time to start is now. Okay, getting job ready, the right time to start is right now. So there are two things I want to cover in this talk. The first thing is what you should know about being a software engineer. And I'm going to tap into the years of experience that I have. I'm going to tell you what are the few things that you should know. And this is important, especially for people who are kind of new to the industry. They're pursuing other disciplines and they're kind of peeking into the software industry. Like, yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I want to pursue a computer science job, stuff like that. So it's going to be helpful for that. And then secondly, I'm going to be talking about what you should do. Okay, what are the things that you should be doing right now to become job ready, right? Simple agenda, right? Things you should know and things you should do. All right. So I'm going to start with the things you should know. Okay. The first thing is about the entry criteria for a software developer job. Okay. One of the things that you will notice in doing anything with software, right, is that it is a low barrier to entry. Let's say I'm a civil engineer and I want to practice building a skyscraper. Can you imagine how hard it is? Can I practice it? Like I have a weekend free. I want to build a skyscraper and see how it is. Or maybe like a rough outline of a skyscraper or a rough outline of a bridge. I cannot do that, right? I'm a mechanical engineer. I want to build a prototype of an engine. Can I do that? Well, no, I cannot. I'm a software engineer. I want to build a clone of Facebook. Can I do that? Of course I can, right? There is a very low barrier to entry in our profession. Okay, you can build the next Facebook, you can build the next WhatsApp, and guess what? You can do that in probably a weekend once you get good at it. All right, you can build all of those applications that you admire, that you use. You not only have the tools for it, you also have places where you can host the application. Okay, you can build a copy of Facebook or something entirely new, post it on AWS, and send the link to people. If the application is good, people will come. Okay, you can actually do that. It's almost like you're a civil engineer and you're building your own skyscraper, right? It's equivalent of it. It's like you can replicate the success of the best in the business. So that's actually both a good thing and a bad thing, as with a lot of things that I'm going to talk about. It gives you access to build those things and improve yourself. And because it's a low barrier of entry, it also improves the competition. Right? There's going to be a lot of people who have a low barrier of entry to do the very same thing. So what's going to happen is, not just you, everybody can build a new Facebook. So because there is high competition, the losers are the people who don't build that Facebook when they have that downtime, right? The people who don't use that low barrier of entry and build something to improve their skills when they can. Okay, because guess what? With so many people in the market, there are going to be a few people who are going to use that opportunity and low barrier entry and actually be building that, right? And people who don't use it are going to be left behind, right? So that's a good thing and a bad thing. The other thing about the entry criteria to a software industry, it's very much merit-based. It's like if you're good, you get success. If you're bad, you're not going to get success. Okay, so there is very little, like, okay, my father's uncle's, brother-in-law is working in this company. Those kind of things very rarely happen in software industry. Okay, so it's merit-based, which is more reason for you to kind of build that skill, given that you have that low barrier of entry. Right. First thing you should know, the entry criteria is very different compared to other professions. Second thing you should know is the outside perception. My first reason for thinking, well, let me try software engineering was this. Well, if I go to other engineering disciplines, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. If I go to other engineering disciplines, then the labs are super difficult. But if I go to computer science, I get to sit in an AC room, just sit back and just type stuff and it works. It looks so easy. And you look at the salary, people are making so much more than like equivalent mechanical engineers. I don't know why I'm bringing up mechanical and civil. Those are the two things that come to mind, right? Imagine any other thing, right? Except for doctors, there isn't quite an industry and a field where you get paid as much as a good software engineer. So this is outside perception. Okay, it's easy and it's also paid well. Like, you'd be an idiot to not take it, right? It seems like, win-win. Like, why would I sweat and do something else? So what's happened is there are a lot of, when you see this kind of demand show up and people are interested, there are a lot of these, get-rich-quick schemes. Whenever there is an opportunity for people to think, oh, maybe I can get rich quick using this, there's going to be people who are going to sell you this formula, right? So there are a lot of boot camps which tell you, hey, you don't know anything, you don't have skills for any other job. Well, join my boot camp. I'm going to teach you how to become a good software engineer in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know what's the going rate. Time period these times. It keeps getting lesser and lesser. So, join our boot camp. We're going to teach you everything you need to know. And after the boot camp, you're going to go walk into a Facebook and demand that high salary, and your life is settled. Okay, so this is the outside perception. People think that it's easy, and people think that it's well paid. So there are people who are going to sell you the magic tablet. Like, well, why don't you leverage it? Okay, a lot of times this isn't the case, and you should know this. I mean, if you've been studying computer science, you know that it's not always easy and it's not always well paid. And most of these get-rich-quick schemes are, they're just trying to sell you stuff. Third thing you should know about software engineering, supply versus demand. So you must have seen these advertisements. I don't know if it's common in India now. It used to happen a lot in the US, but they've kind of stopped it now. There are all these learn to code ad campaigns. Okay,
Yeah.
There's like everybody can code. And I think it's in India as well. Like, they start teaching kids as well, and they say, well, there's such a shortage of jobs. So many people, there's so much jobs, and they give all these crazy numbers. Like, there's going to be such a shortage of software engineering jobs in the next 5 years, 10 years. Well, get crayons and chalk out of your kids' hands and start them on Python, right? It's a common trend that's happening around the world. Like, there's such a shortage, all right? And then, on the other hand, you have people who have completed 4 years of rigorous computer science curriculum, and they're like, why am I not getting a job? All right. So these two things don't match. Like, you have, on the one hand, you have people saying, well, kids need to learn because we need all the software engineers. And on the other hand, people who have graduated are struggling to find a job. So what's going on here? The thing is, there are a few aspects you need to understand. First of all, not all jobs are the same. Secondly, not all software developers are the same. Okay, so it's very hard to do supply and demand using this. Okay, it's easier if you're doing like a low skilled labor, right? So let's say you're doing you're looking for I don't know, I'm going to take the gardener analogy. Okay, so I'm looking for a gardener, right? So I'm going to put an ad in the market and like, okay, I need a gardener to clean this thing and to plant some trees or plants or whatever. The skill that's needed is almost I would say pretty much the same. You're not going to have like an ordinary gardener and a superstar gardener who's going to plant like, a tree and the next day I go to the garden, right? There's going to be a little bit of difference in terms of the quality of work, but there's not going to be that significant difference. On the other hand, with software developers, you have bad developers and you have really, really good developers. A bad developer can shut down your business. Okay, you can write really bad code that's going to bring down your website. It's going to crash your system. And at the same time, you can have a good developer who comes up with something really innovative that makes your application or your company really shoot up. Okay, so there is a huge difference there, and the jobs are also like that. Sometimes people need jobs. They're hiring for people who want to just do basic programming. And then some other jobs are like, okay, I need a software architect to manage like these 100 different microservices and deploy them to the cloud or whatever, right? So the delta is very different. So it's very hard to do supply and demand. I'm not going to comment on getting the kids to code because there are no kids in this call, I'm assuming. I'm going to keep that opinion to myself. I do have opinions, but I'm not going to share it here. But the thing to understand is that the delta is different. Not all jobs are the same and not all engineers are the same. So in order to get the bigger chunk of the market, the better the software engineering needs to be. And this is where skills come into the picture again. You need to level up your skills in order to get the bigger share of the job market. So generally, it seems to be a little bit worse now. Again, like I said, because of the pandemic, the job market is a little bit rough. Supply seems to be more than demand. At the same time, because of the pandemic, a lot of job changes have stopped. Okay. One of the reasons why there are a lot of job openings is because people change jobs. People change jobs a lot in the software industry. Right? So when somebody leaves, there's a job opening and they post ads, right? It's the same people who can go and join the other fill another position, but still there are a lot of openings. Okay, and when there is an opening, it's an opportunity for someone new to sneak in. But because people are holding on to their jobs, they're not changing jobs because of the pandemic, the number of openings have reduced as well. Okay, and that's the reason why it's a little slow. But I'm pretty confident that there's going to be an upswing once things pick up, once the effects of the pandemic slow down, right? Okay, the fourth thing you need to know is that it is harder to get in than to stay in. Okay, you're all students right now. You're going to be applying for your first job interview once you're done with your education, or maybe even before that. The problem is it's the first job is always difficult. Okay, the first time you apply for a job interview, the job interview pressure is going to be high. It's always going to be difficult. Companies usually have a cost for the wrong hire. If a company hires someone and then they realize that that person isn't qualified enough, it's costly for them. Okay, they have to pay due salary, and then they let you go, and then they have to fire the person. They have to hire again. It costs them a lot of money. Okay, but it's cost them less money to reject a possibly qualified candidate because there will be someone else, right? They don't want to do a false negative. Okay, so it's okay if they let go of a qualified candidate, but they don't want to hire an unqualified candidate. They want to minimize the risk there, which is why getting in is always hard. But again, once you get in, again, the company's cost for letting someone go and firing someone is going to work for you, right? You have to really, really screw up for the company to fire you. So it's not fair. And I say that because it's different from your college environment, right? In the college, things are fair. You write your answers in your exam paper, and if the lecturer doesn't evaluate you properly, you can say, well, I wrote this, so I'm entitled to this much score, right? It's fair, but real world isn't fair. They don't care, right? Companies looking for their own interest. There's no justice that you can appeal to. So that's something that you need to know. Interviews are, it's harder to get into the industry than to stay in. And the final thing you need to know is that interviews are hard. And if interviews are hard, it's good news. Okay, what do I mean by that? So an example that a teacher of mine told me when I was in school, or I believe college, was he was like, if you're appearing for an exam and if the exam question paper is hard, it's actually good news, because guess what? if imagine you appear for an exam and there's only one question in the exam, what is 2 plus 2? Okay, for example, very simple answer, very simple question. Everybody is going to answer it. Okay, and the tougher the question paper gets, the more the competition grows, and the better you are, the better is your opportunity to stand out. Okay, let's say you're a really good mathematician. Okay, and you're asked the same question, what is 2 plus 2? As somebody who I'm not a mathematician at all, right? I can answer. So there is no way for a proper mathematician to stand out and say that they're better at their job than me, right? Everybody gets 2 plus 2. But if the question is harder, there is a better chance for that real professional mathematician to actually perform better than me, right? You see what I mean? So that's the reason why when interviews are hard, it's good news because you get to stand out from the competition as a good software engineer, right? Okay, so these are the 5 things you should know. How are we doing on time?
It's
How much time?
9:30. We have 45 minutes. 45 minutes. We can extend even more if you want to.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's move on to the 5 things that you should do. Okay, now these are the important things you should know. Okay, as somebody who is going to be entering the software industry, these are the 5 things you should know. Now, what are the 5 things? I'll quickly recap. Entry criteria, low barrier to entry, and it's merit-based. Second, the outside perception is a little bit flawed. It's not easy and it's not well paid all the time. Okay. Second, supply versus demand is tricky because there is a delta. There is a huge range between good and bad, both in terms of your skills as a software engineer and the job requirement. Fourth, it's harder to get in than to stay in. So once you clear that first hurdle, it's going to be much easier. And then finally, interviews are hard. And it's good news. If interviews are hard, whenever interviews are hard, it's actually good news for you because you have an opportunity to shine.
Right.
All right. So what you should do. Okay, what are the things you should do? I told you, well, you got to have prepare for being job ready starting from today. What are the things you should do? The first thing you should do is develop a learning mindset. Okay, you need to get into the place in your mind where it's like you're going to be learning for the rest of your life, okay? Or at least until you're 60, whenever you retire, right? You are going to be learning, period, whether you like it or not, okay? This is especially true for a software developer because things continue to change. A lot of people take the trajectory of they get to a certain point in software development and then they go like, yeah, this is constant technology churn. This is too much for me. I'm going to get into management. I'm going to switch to being like a people manager. But guess what you have to do when you become a people manager in the software industry? You got to keep learning, okay? So people tend to think that it's like, okay, I'm going to get a break from learning, but it's never going to end. You have to keep learning because the people manager in the software industry is set a higher bar, and you have all these different processes and techniques for managing people. So even if you go that route, you are going to be learning, okay? So make sure you develop a learning mindset, okay? Because you'll be doing this all your life. The thing about the learning mindset is that it has a snowball effect. I don't know if you folks have heard about the snowball effect. The idea is something like this. Let's say you're in a snowy mountain, right? It's covered with snow. You take a small ball of snow, make a small ball of snow, and then roll it down. What's the size of the ball when it gets down to the ground? It's going to be huge because as the snowball rolls, it gathers more and more snow. It gradually becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the fact that it's becoming bigger makes it gather more. So it becomes exponential. Okay, so that's the key aspect of snowball. Not that it's constantly growing, but the fact that it's growing is going to make it grow more, right? That's a snowball effect. And that's true for learning as well. You are going to have a snowball effect with learning. When you learn something, you're going to be able to learn more. And the more you learn, the quicker you're going to learn. So it accelerates. It's actually a good thing. So what I would recommend you do is explore a couple of technologies for every problem. I told you how you can build the next Facebook, you can build the next WhatsApp or Google or whatever else, right? Try and do that in a very small scale. You may not build a Facebook, but try building, like an application to track how many marks and how much score you got in all your exams. Okay, just a simple record-keeping app. You can build it. You can build a game that you play with your friends, right? These are things that you can kind of get started now. I don't know where you are in your coding journey. If you're just starting, build something simple. If you have built a few apps, build something more complicated, right? So just get started and build something. And when you build something, look at technologies. Like, what technologies do you have? Let's say you want to build a web application, right? You want to build like a front-end application. Well, see, what can I build it in? I can build it in React. I can build it in Angular or Vue or whatever else. Just explore a couple of technologies for each of the problems that you're trying to solve, right? You want to save data to the database. Well, I can save it as a PostgreSQL database, or I can save it in a NoSQL database like MySQL. Explore a couple of technologies there. Just explore, get into it, and learn what are the technologies at your disposal. Okay. One other thing that I would recommend you learn always is to learn the why along with the how. Okay. You are building something. Yashwant, what's a good example of things that people are using right now when they're coding? Some technology or some framework that they're using right now.
React and some
React is being used. Okay, cool. So you're building a React component, and the React component has this hook for state. Okay, so you will learn how to hook onto a state and then make REST API calls or whatever else. Well, don't just learn how to do it. Learn why to do it. Right? Why did the creator of the framework put in this concept of a hook with a callback on state changes? Why not just have you call a function? Well, there are 10 different ways to do this. Why did they choose that particular pattern? Okay, this is a very powerful question to ask. And you can ask this question for everything that you learn in the software industry, right? Any syntax, like you're working on Java or JavaScript. The syntax, well, why was the syntax designed this way? Why didn't they do it the other way, right? Why didn't they do it using some other syntax? Why didn't they use, modules in a particular way? Why not do imports in a different way? Right? There are all these questions. It's like when you start asking the why, that's when the world opens up, right? You understand the reasons for it, and then you also kind of appreciate why the decision was made so that you learn to use it well, okay? So one of the reasons why my YouTube channel has been decently popular is because I cover the why, and I see people appreciating that. I don't just teach you how to do it. I teach you, like, why was it done? Why did the creators of the framework or the creators of the language do that? It's a very important thing. So constantly ask that question to yourself. Constantly ask that question to your lecturers or your teachers. It's like, why was the API designed in such a way, or stuff like that, right? And then finally, learn from a combination of online videos and official manuals. A lot of people stop short. They get stuck in a problem. They pick up a YouTube video or just read a blog post and like, okay, I know how to do this. I'm done. I would say take it a step further. Every time you learn something, go to the official documentation of the thing that you learn and read that section. Okay. So for example, I'm going to talk about JavaScript since you mentioned React, Yashwant. So I learned about object destructuring a while back. Okay, I learned that, okay, I can take properties from an object and put it to the left-hand side by creating curly braces and putting those things. Well, okay, that's a cool thing. Now I have a tool in my arsenal. And if I had not read the documentation, I would have just stopped there. Well, I went to the documentation. I learned, well, there are a lot of other things you can do with object destruction. So for example, you can come up with different names. So let's say I have an object which contains properties foo and bar. Now on the left-hand side, I can put curly brace, foo bar. Okay, I'm going to get the property. But I can also give it a different name. I can say variable1 : foo, and it's going to put foo into variable1 and not to foo. Variable2 : bar, it's going to put, like, I'm changing the name of the variable with object destructuring in the same line. But that's a feature of the language, and I wouldn't have known that if I just stopped short of reading just that blog post and then copy pasting that code, right? I learned that because I took the time to read the official documentation and read the guides. So please do that. You're going to have a more rounded experience. You're going to fill in the gaps in your knowledge. Okay, so that's the first thing you should do. Start doing this now. Start doing this for everything that you're going to work on. Second, what you should do is develop a doing mindset. Okay, so this is the growth mindset. The learning mindset I talked about. This is a doing mindset. So this is unique to software. Like I said, build full projects. Okay, build stuff that people get to use, even if nobody ends up actually using it. Build it, assuming that you're the next Mark Zuckerberg and you're building the next Facebook that's going to be used by thousands of people. Okay, assume that, pretend that that's the case, and build it. It's okay if nobody comes. The point is not to have users. The point is to be able to build that thing. Okay, so start building something from end to end. You will be surprised at how many people are actually full-time employees of reputed companies, and they haven't actually built an application end to end in all their career. Okay, they get a salaried job, they just do what's required for the job. They haven't taken the time to build an end-to-end application, which is very, very unfortunate. So take the time and build your own Facebook or Amazon, or even, like I said, a small record-keeping app. Start from there, build it end-to-end. Again, learn the how along with the what, and then you can build anything. Like I said, it's something unique to us. Third thing you should do is to build a portfolio. Okay, you have to have something which showcases your work. Okay, have a GitHub repo, have a website which showcases your work. You need to be able to give a URL to a prospective employer and say, hey, well, check out some of the stuff that I've done, some of the cool stuff that I've done. Okay, this happens after the second thing you need to do, which is to build an end-to-end thing, right? You can't showcase your work if you don't have any work to showcase, right? So once you build that end-to-end project, build something that showcases it, right? A lot of what you do in software industry and pretty much any job is marketing, right? You need to be able to market yourself. You need to be able to showcase and boast a little bit, not be overconfident, but be confident and like, yes, this is what I'm capable of. These are the things I've done. We'll check it out, right? So you need to be able to showcase it.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that has personally helped me, this may not be what you want to do, but this is something that's helped me a lot, is to teach others. You learn a lot by teaching others. So definitely use the opportunity to just teach. Find someone who is who's struggling with something, help them. It's very fulfilling. It's very satisfying when you teach someone and help someone, learn something, which is a huge motivator for me, by the way. Which is why I create videos on my channel. But even otherwise, you get to benefit from it. Even in a selfish way, it's good to teach because you learn the topic better than before teaching. Even if you knew the topic, and even if you didn't do any preparation teaching, right? The very process of teaching something is going to help you understand and learn a topic which you wouldn't have otherwise. So teach, help others. It's beneficial both to them and to you. Fourth thing you need to learn. This is probably something which you can hold off until the final semester or the final year. Okay, the other stuff you're going to start doing now. This one you can start doing now, but you can probably hold off till later, is learn how to interview. Okay, software industry is one industry where, again, I'm telling you things which are unique to the software industry. Is interviewing skills are very different from on-the-job skills. Okay, you don't reverse a binary tree, on your day-to-day job, but you are asked to sort a tree in an interview, right? You're asked to write, coding algorithms in an interview. So you have to be good at interviewing. So practice coding problems, lead code, hackerrank, a lot of stuff. And then learn how to talk about your solution. Learn how to reason with the interviewer and tell them okay, this is why I'm thinking this. Understand why the interviewer are asking certain questions and respond to that. Kind of there is an additional dimension to answering the interview rather than just solving the problem. And again, I don't want to plug too much of my videos, but I have a playlist on interview challenges. When you get time, take a look at it. Talk about how do you approach an interview challenge. Okay, so for example, one of the things you need to do when somebody asks you a coding challenge interview is ask them questions back. A lot of interview questions are deliberately vague. They want you to ask questions back. So in my coding practice video, I tell them okay, here is the question, and here are the questions that you would have to ask them, right? What are the things that you have to ask and clarify from the interviewer? And there is a reason for this, actually. Compared to building a bridge, that's been a good analogy, so I'm going to stick to it. When you build a bridge, how much of effort goes into planning? There is a lot of effort that goes into it, right? It's you have to, they spend years and years planning it out, planning it to every little detail, and only then they contract it, right? They estimate everything go in significant detail. But it's very easy for someone to start working on a new Facebook app by just opening the editor and start coding, right? Create new React app. I'm working on new Facebook app, right? You don't you can afford to not plan much. The whole low barrier to entry where you don't have to invest a lot of money to do it, well, that kind of works against you in this case. Like imagine if it cost you a lot of money to start any software project, well, you would do that planning, but it doesn't cost you anything to start a software project. So people can just dive right in. Well, you can do that in your hobby projects, but it doesn't work in a professional situation. In a professional situation, it is going to cost people money to start a project because the company is paying you. So that's the reason why you need to plan. You need to ask questions, answer edge cases and all that stuff. A lot of things need to happen, which is why interviewers expect this from you in an interview. So always remember, when you're in a coding interview challenge, the final solution isn't it. You can not crack the challenge, not give an answer, but still get the job because you have performed well and you've demonstrated qualities of being a good software engineer. I told you in my story, the first software engineering job that I got, I didn't crack the code, right? I didn't solve the problem, but I demonstrated enough skills for the interviewer to say, well, let's give this guy a chance, right? That's what matters. The final thing you should do is to work on your soft skills, okay? The soft skills includes both your ability to communicate in English. Well, for better or for worse, software is a global industry and English is a global language. So when you are in the software industry, there's a very good chance that you're going to be talking to other people in English, okay? So you need to be good at communicating in the English language. You need to be good at expressing your thoughts and not causing confusion when you speak, right? You need to be clear, okay? Don't worry about accents. Don't worry too much about proper grammar, okay? A little bit of controversial grammar is fine. What you need to worry about is expressiveness, being able to translate the thoughts in your head to words and have it be fluent is the key, okay? So work on that. There are a few other aspects of soft skills that I would recommend you work on, which is being authentic, right? Being true to yourself. Don't fake anything. And also being humble, right? Humility goes a long way in the software industry. It's like, you cannot learn everything and you cannot be the best best professional there is. Like, I'm always amazed by people who work on these solutions, and I see other people's code, which oh man, I wish I could write code like that. And people have seen my code and have said the same thing. So it's like, there's always one person who's doing remarkably better than you. So it's always important to stay humble and help others and be authentic. And it's always important to be open. Don't be rude, but be open. You don't have to lie your way around it. There are different people coming from different backgrounds. Some backgrounds encourage lying, and I've seen that all over the world. It's not just where I'm from or where I'm working in right now. I've seen various other places in the world where the people's value system is different. People understand things differently. People behave differently. Well, when you're in a global workforce, you have to set all those individual differences aside. The good thing is, this is an industry which values nice things, okay? There's people from all over the world doing great stuff. So be nice to people around you and work on your soft skills. I think that's what matters, end of the day, okay? So with that, I'm going to basically wrap up. I want to talk about one thing that you shouldn't do, right? There are a few things which I didn't cover in this talk, which is okay. It's added the 2 slides over here. My apologies. Imagine that the thank you isn't there. It's supposed to be the next slide. Okay. What I haven't mentioned here is I haven't told you to worry about technology choices. I didn't cover, well, should you learn Java or JavaScript or Python? I didn't cover any of that. Why? Because it doesn't matter. Okay. My first job, I was given. So usually in your first job, you don't get a choice on what you're working on, right? You just pick the job that you get. You'd be grateful for it. It's like, oh, thank goodness I got a job. Well, they want me to work on some crappy stuff. I'm going to work on that crappy stuff. It's usually the case, unless you're like an exceptional candidate. So you don't get to pick the first job. You don't get to pick the first project. So don't sweat it. Okay, don't worry about it. Learn to become a good software engineer. In whatever technology you pick, you're going to be good at that, right? So don't sweat the small stuff. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and open it up for questions.
Yes, sure. So, audience, I'd like to quickly remind everyone about the free premium Apple accounts we are giving away. The link is in the chat. Please fill the Google form, and you'll be getting a free premium subscription of Apple, the online ID. So, because so one thing we guys are always discussing is like I've seen many people for preparing for the interview, and they say like I think they can't get a job this time. So instead of trying for a job, they say like I'll try higher studies, I'll do an MTech or I'll do an MS, and then I'll get a job. And I want to say, in the long run, does it matter that much if you do a MTech for 3 years instead of having industry experience of 3 years? Like, what difference does it make down the line?
In the software industry, it doesn't matter if you have a couple of years extra education, if the job that you're going to pick up is the same as someone who has basically worked for those 2 years or 3 years. Okay, I'll give you an example. I just graduated, finished my bachelor's. I decided not to do my master's. I get a job in some product development company. I work on like a phone app, okay, or like a web app, React app. I work on React for 2 years. And then there's another person who completes master's, and then they're like, yeah, I completed my master's. I'm gonna search for a job. I'm like, what job do we have? Well, I have like a mid-level experience position. I'm gonna start working on the React app. Well, what you've done here is you have two people. One person worked for those 2 years, and they're doing a job which another person spent 2 years studying, and they're at the same place. Okay, so in this case, who is the net winner here? It's the person who worked, because not only have they not spent extra money studying, they also have earned some money and they have real-world industry experience. So the reason I say this is, if you are pursuing higher studies, you're pursuing master's or a PhD, make sure that you're going to land a job which is significantly better than if you had been working. Okay, you have to set your standards higher, which means that you need to be open to waiting a little bit longer, and you need to be even good at your, in your coding skills and in your interview skills, so that you can get that high-tier job. Okay, it's very easy for for you to say like, I finished my master's, so I'm just going to go get a job, and all you have is an equivalent of the 2 years of experience. Okay, if you don't let that happen, it's okay if you go do your master's, but be prepared to go that extra mile because you're taking the harder route there. Okay, so that's what I would recommend.
So thank you for the detailed answer. So there's one more thing we guys always generally laugh about, like whenever we see a job in these days, like there's a list of 20 bullet points with 20 different technologies, and it's an entry-level job. So freshers are like, do I need to learn all these to get an entry-level job? It's like, are the companies getting more demanding as the work from home culture is increasing? So what is actually happening there?
Yeah, so companies are getting more demanding because there are more people. Okay, I talked about the supply and demand thing, right? It's hard for you to say, well, there are so many people and there are so many jobs, so is there a one-to-one mapping? It's usually not the case. Jobs are different, right? A job at a company like Google is different from a job at a small bank where there's like a team of 5 people, right? So it's a spectrum. The higher you go in that, the level of technology that the company uses and the brand recognition of the company, the more difficult the interview gets, right? And the more candidates, the more buzzwords you need to have. Also, these technology words might seem daunting if you haven't used them at all. But you remember I told you about trying out 2 technologies for every problem, right? Let's say you are trying to build your own Facebook. I'm assuming that everybody who is in this call or watching this right now is going to try and build their own web application after we're done, right? The weekend coming up, spend the time and learn something and try and build something, okay? When you build an application end-to-end, there are several problems that you need to solve, right? You need to learn how to start a database, host a database, right? You need to learn how to do schema design. You need to learn how to do authentication. You need to learn how to set up a web server. Guess what happens when you learn all the technologies that are required to solve the problem? Well, the end of the day, you're going to have a bunch of buzzwords with you, right? You will know those things. Nobody in their right mind will expect you to have on-the-job experience. They expect you to be familiar with those things, okay? It's almost like you're saying, well, I want to be a carpenter, but there are so many tools. Well, there's a spanner, there is a hammer, there is a saw. Well, how many do I learn? Well, you don't have to be the most expert person who handles a saw, but you need to know what a saw is and what it does. Okay, that's a bare minimum that you need to know as to be a carpenter. So that's what I would recommend here, right? People who are going for a job, people who are listening to you at an interview, they know that you're a fresher. They know that you don't have industry experience. But the very fact that you know what are the name of the tools that somebody would use to build an application like this, and what they do, what is the problem they're trying to solve, that's going to get you there. Right, that's going to get you ready for answering those questions. So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay. So I think that was very clear. Thank you. So I'll pick some question from the audience. So one of the question is, in the software space, almost every company is asking their employees to work from home. All right. So how did this change the workspace, and workplace has affected the efficiency of the employees moving forward? And moving forward, how it is going to be? Like, it will continue to be the same, or there will be blend of on-site and the work from home?
Can you repeat the thing? Since people are working from home, so what is the implication of this? What is the second part of the question?
So the second part is, so how did this change in the workspaces affected the efficiency of the employees moving forward? So the
change in the workspace.
I think he's trying to say, like, is working from home increasing the efficiency of the employees, or is decreasing it, or is being the same? Like, what's the effect?
I can obviously not talk about my company because it's not it's not public information. But what I've noticed in general, like talking to my friends working in other companies, is people are actually working more than they would otherwise, because it's kind of blurred the line between work and home life, right? So when you have like a fixed time, even if it stretches, you basically say like, okay, I'm leaving office and going home. There are people who work, even after that, but there is this clear divide that is kind of blurring right now. There isn't a certain start and a certain stop. So among the people that I've talked to, it's usually led to more work rather than less work. But then it depends. I think one other thing that is benefited is the flexibility. You get to work at different times. So I have a kid, so it kind of allows me to spend more time with my kid. Like, he calls me, like, you want to play for 5 minutes? I go play and then come back, continue my work. So that kind of flexibility I would have never had. So again, it depends. It's a mixed bag.
Okay. So, and moving forward, do you think this will continue, or companies will switch back to this office mode?
My personal opinion is that it's going to be a slow return to how things were before. I don't think there's going to be a drastic difference. The thing is, we could have always worked from home, right? We didn't need COVID to work from home. The ability was always there. There was some mix of factors which led to people feeling comfortable working from office, right? So those factors haven't gone away. Right? Once the forcing function of people staying home is gone, that it's gradually going to start going back to the way things were, is what I believe. Maybe skilled employees can demand to work from home. Is like, allow me to work from home. I'm going to switch jobs. Like, if you have that leverage, you might be able to continue working from home. It goes back to the supply and demand, right? If there's a lot of people applying for jobs, the company is like, you don't want to work, you don't want to come to office, I'm going to hire someone else who comes to office. But at a higher level, like somebody who has like 10 years experience, that person can say, well, I want to work from home. Good luck finding someone else if you're not letting me. So I guess it depends.
Okay. So there is a question which is very common among the third years and the fourth years. How does one deal with rejections? Like, when you're applying blindly, you get almost one rejection every week. So
Uh-huh.
how do we deal with them? Like once the rejections start to pile up, there is that sense like you won't get anything. And how to cope up with that?
Yeah. The thing that I talked earlier about, harder to get in, easier to stay, is something you need to think about. Companies are erring on the safe side. Okay, a company doesn't want to hire someone unless they know for sure that they're a good fit for the company. Okay, so even if you're a good programmer, if they have a doubt, they have an element of a doubt, they're like, better to be safe and not hire this person. Let's hire someone who is a surefire fit. Okay, so it is skewed. It is not fair. Again, like I mentioned, it's not like college, right? You don't get fair results for what work you've done, but it is what it is. The company is trying to protect their bottom line. Okay, is the first thing. That should help you accept rejection and basically just scale up your application effort. The second thing that I would tell you is I'm going to give an analogy on to the dating world. Okay, earlier dating would be people you know, right? You date the people you know, right? All those relationships are like, I know this person. Someone else introduces you, or you happen to meet them, and then you like them, and then you try having conversations and so on, right? The scope of influence is less, right? People usually, like, they used to meet and marry people like they know, or there's this network, and then they get there. Now with online dating, the pool is wider. The ability to reach more people is wider. So how many rejections do you think an average person would get? That has increased too, right? So yeah, the bigger the pool, the ratio, even if the ratio is the same, the bigger the number of rejections. Okay.
Right.
So when I was applying for a job 20 years back, when I was a fresher, there wasn't so much active, job postings and applications online. It was still a little bit of a network, like, oh, that person told me that these guys are hiring, so send a resume, right? So the even though the ratio is the same, number of rejections would be less, right? I would just apply for 5 jobs and 4 would be rejected, 1 got through. Well, great, right? Just 4 rejections is easier to deal with. But here, you have to remember that you're applying for a lot of jobs, right? You're applying for 50 jobs, 60 jobs. That seems to be common now, right? Over a span of a month or 2 months. So more rejections isn't necessarily bad. You have to look at the ratio. Okay. One thing that I do, and I mentor a few people, I teach them this, is to think of it as a funnel. Okay. Have a data-driven approach to your job hunting. Right? So you have like a funnel of how many companies did you send your resume to? Okay. And then from that, the funnel goes down to how many companies gave you a call back. Okay, smaller funnel. Out of that, how many people approached you for a phone interview? How many phone interviews did you clear? And then how many in-person interviews did you clear? And so on, right? It's a funnel, eventually leading to hopefully a hire, right? Now you can identify where the rejection is coming from and tune that. Okay, so let's say the rejection is happening at the very first stage, right? You're sending your resumes everywhere, and nobody is, nobody's even calling you for a phone interview. Well, then do you work on your lead code skills? No, you work on your resume, right? That's the dropping point. That's the bottleneck. So tweak that. Okay, get more through in the first step, and now go to the phone interview. Now let's say, okay, phone interview cleared, in-person interview you're failing, or maybe the phone interview. Again, look at that step where a lot of drop-offs are happening in that funnel, and tweak and work on that. So use a rejection as an opportunity to tweak that thing. Go for a data-driven approach. Don't be like, oh man, this company rejected me. It's more like, okay, out of the 50 companies that I applied to, 25 dropped off at the phone interview. Like, okay, now I need to improve my phone interview skills, right? If you take that approach, it's very easy to handle rejection.
Yeah. I think everything's clear. We will ask this question. If you have any more questions, just keep asking in the chat. So, Koushik, there is one thing I would like to discuss. It's not regarding the job readiness. It's something I wanted to ask about the industry. Like with each passing day, there's new and new frameworks coming out. And when you see it from outside, it looks like there is a race going on. This community is racing in this community. Like, and everyone is talking like, our framework is better, ours is better, use this, use that. And there's a race coming up. And when you look at that as a fresher, and you are confused. You go to Stack Overflow, there are people fighting. Use this flip, use this, use that, use Vue, use React, use Angular. So don't you think there should be a one framework the industry should promote? Like this is the stack, and we will train the employees on this stack, and this will be the standard stack. And the employees that are coming in, the freshers, can focus on that stack and get really good. And instead of focusing on 10 different frameworks and trying out, like, what do you think about this?
That's fair. In an ideal world, you would have just one tech stack that addresses all the needs and everybody is good at it. The problem though is what's been happening these days is the frameworks and the technology solutions have also become a product. Okay, React is almost like a product from Facebook. Okay, Angular is almost a product from Google. Okay, there are probably backers of other technologies as well, because these people are putting forward a technology to solve a problem, but they're also putting it forward to make money. Okay, Docker, for example, is a containerized solution. There is a company called Docker which is pushing the solution in order to make money, and the more people who use the solution, the better their chance of succeeding as a company, because they're providing support for it, right? So when the technology becomes a product, there's going to be competition among these technologies. Okay, Docker obviously wants Docker to succeed. Okay, the Kubernetes team obviously wants Kubernetes to succeed, right? And there are all these different players who are introducing these technologies as a means for actually monetizing it. Okay, so this is the reason why there are so many technologies and they're all competing. Now, this again has a plus and a minus. Okay, the positive side is that there are going to be more diverse jobs and there is less competition for each. Okay, imagine everybody is using React. So when you're applying for a job, a React job, you are basically fighting against like the best front-end developers there is. Okay, so on the other hand, there is now, with the way things are right now, there is some comfort in knowing that, this rock star front-end developer who is working on Angular is like, oh, thank goodness, I'm never going to be in the same interview with him because he's not going to show up in my interview. They're working on a completely different tech stack, right? You get what I'm saying, right? I'm, of course, trivializing it, but you get the idea. The diversity helps in competition. The diversity helps in you getting more diverse jobs to apply and work on. So that's the plus side. The negative side is, well, where do you start as a fresher, right? As a fresher, usually the best bet is to just pick something that you're, which is the most popular. Like if you're working on front-end, React is the best choice right now. Just pick it and run with it. Again, don't sweat on like, okay, should I learn React or Angular? Just pick something which is popular and learn it, and that should do.
Okay. So someone is trying to ask for the development side of Java, like how to get started with the developing applications with Java. Like in the coursework, we only have OOPS concept in Java, and there's not much about the development side of Java. So what should be the right way if you're interested in Java?
You would start by looking at Java applications, right? Application development. Java is usually good for backend services, right? You wouldn't build a front-end stack with Java. You can, but you wouldn't do it. You build like a backend service, an API or stuff like that. So learn how to build APIs using Java. So the first thing that comes to mind is Spring. Learn Spring Boot, and it's just a framework which allows you to write applications in Java. So spend like a day learning Spring, and then you should be on your way to work on it.
Okay. So guys, I'd like to remind you, like we are giving away free 1 month subscription to Rappel Online ID. Just fill the Google form link there in the chat. Okay. Like I don't think
we have free subscription, Yashwant. Do I qualify?
Yeah.
I'll apply.
Yeah, we can give you more than one if you want.
Right. Any questions? Any other questions?
Yeah, you don't even have to fill the form. We'll fill that for you. I think there's not a lot of questions left. 1 or 2 questions are left. We just quickly go over them.
Sure.
Okay, so I think this is a really good question. So how to deal with feeling cold before starting a project? The inferiority complex, like the imposter syndrome, like what's the point of starting this project? this looks very complex. I won't be able to complete it. And sometimes this happens, like you are midway into the project, you're going good, and one thing starts breaking down, and you just give up on the project.
Right. Are you talking about a project that you build on your own, or a project that you're working with others on? I feel if I were to guess, I would say it's a project where you're working with others, because the imposter syndrome is usually relative to an external perception, right? It's rarely about what you feel yourself. Internship or a job, yes, I guess that. So the good news / bad news is that this is never going to go. Okay, you're always going to have imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome now. Okay, there are things that I do where I feel like, yeah, I'm not a good enough developer. I'm just faking it, and I haven't been caught yet. Okay, that's always the case, because people are always going to be. There's always someone who's going to be better than you. And the more important thing why you tend to have imposter syndrome in software development roles is that it's always a learning curve, right? You're always learning. Compared to like take the job that my dad did. He worked on the same job for 20 years, 25 years, right? He didn't change his line of work, right? Again, take the examples that I gave earlier. A carpenter, he works on his tools, the same set of tools for his whole career. Right? He doesn't change his tools. So he is good. He knows he's good. At a certain point of time, he's like, yeah, I know I'm good at this. I have a decent understanding of how to use these tools. Did we lose Yashwant? I think we did. I'm going to keep going, though. So you have a fair understanding of those tools, and then you stick to it. But with software industry, that's not the case. You learn Java today, right? You're learning React. You become a pro at React. A couple of years later, there's a new technology that comes up. You're going to learn from the scratch again. It's going to be a little bit better. I talked about the snowball effect, right? The fact that you've learned React is going to make you learn that new technology easier. But then you're still new. And then you're going to work on a project where someone would have probably learned it a little bit more. And you'd be like, yeah, I'm a bit of an imposter here. That person knows better than me, right? So my advice to you would be, don't let technology knowledge make you have that opinion. Okay, what matters is not technology knowledge. How good of a software engineer is not dependent on how good you know React. What matters is how good you are as a software developer, right? How good are you in JavaScript? How good are you in Googling and looking up Stack Overflow when you're stuck on a problem? How good are you in putting in the effort? How good are you in visualizing the big picture, right? Asking questions, understanding what the requirements are, understanding corner cases, right? Those are qualities of a good software engineer. And that's going to be the case whether you're working on React or Angular or some new thing that comes up later, right? So lean on that. Whenever you feel imposter syndrome, lean on the kind of universal qualities that make you a good software engineer. If you don't feel you have those, work on those, okay? That's something you have to work on, and it's independent of technology. But once you feel you have those, lean on those and like, yeah, I may not know this particular thing about React. I may not know how React hooks, but I'm a good software engineer and I can learn it. Okay, that should be your attitude, because guess what? When you are in the industry, you are always going to have issues where you need to work on something and you just don't know it. You have to learn it on the job and then implement it. That's the expected way of working. Okay, that's normal. Don't let that influence your inferiority complex. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir. There's a bit network issue with Ishan.
Okay.
It's all about planning things in advance, like what tech stack I should follow, what technology I should cover, like getting in touch with what's new in development and go through.
Yeah, you don't always have to get in touch with what's new in development. Get in touch with what's popular in development and then be good at that, because that's all you can do as a fresher, right?
Yes.
Learn to be good at what's popular in the market. Just look up job postings and see what people are asking. Learn a few of those technologies and build an app end-to-end with that. That's all you need to know. You can't constantly keep up with the new technology. It's not feasible.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's covered all the questions.
Okay.
I would like to thank you for sparing us your time and clearing all the doubts of the students.
I'm glad to be a part of it. I hope this was helpful.
Yes, sir, definitely. Sir. Very helpful.
Cool. Well, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to address you all.
Yeah. Koushik, I would like to thank you personally. Sorry, I lost my connection.
No problem.
Sorry. Thank you for your time. Yeah. Have a good day. Or good night, actually.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
So guys, you can just fill the Google form for 1 month free subscription of Triple IT online ID. And with that, you can start leaving, or I'll just end the meeting. Have a good day. The Google form is in the chat. We're also posting the Google form link on the Discord also. So don't worry about that.